Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, October 24th. We are exactly 1 week away from Halloween, exactly 1 week away from the October 31st, 4 p.m. Eastern Time deadline to get trades done during the 2023 NFL season. Your Jaguars, they're 5-2. They've won 4 straight. They're feeling good. Everything's looking good in Jacksonville for the most part right now. Things are trending in the right direction, but you still do not have a consistent pass rusher on this roster beyond Josh Allen. Bottom line. And Josh Allen has been extremely consistent for the Jaguars this year. He's playing elite football, close to it, if you want to say that. I think that he has been one of the very best pass rushers in the league this year, and the numbers do back that up. But beyond Josh Allen, who's getting the job done as the edge rushers? Trayvon Walker been a consistent edge rusher so far? I wouldn't say that. Certainly not Kayvon Chason. DeJuan Smoot, you want to give him more time to get things going, obviously, but through his first 2 games, he's been heavily featured and not gotten a whole lot done in the pass rush department. Did have a huge forced fumble, but beyond that, he has not gotten much pressure on the quarterback, and you don't want to blame him for that, right? He's coming off an Achilles injury, but you need someone else here beyond Josh Allen, because Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Chason, Yasir Abdullah's not getting snaps right now, not a ton of them. And again, DeJuan Smoot's going to take some time to get back to full strength, if he even does get back to full strength in 2023. The Jaguars should absolutely be calling around looking for edge rush help around the league. There could be trade targets. Again, they've got a week to get a trade done if they want to go that route. There's still some free agents that they could go after as well that I think that would help the roster overall when you talk about the pass rush department. Obviously, you look at Danielle Hunter from Minnesota. The Jaguars have been connected to him for months. They were interested in him prior to the start of the regular season. If you want to go get him, you're probably going to want to sign him to a long-term deal. But if not, you could just be looking at a half-year rental. This is a guy that leads the NFL in sacks right now. I mean, if you're talking about a half-year rental, it does not get much better than that. But I think you're wanting to set up your pass rush for the long term. The problem here is they think they have their long-term pass rushers in Josh Allen, who is a free agent after the 2023 season, but I don't expect him to leave Jacksonville, and Trayvon Walker, who they drafted with the first overall pick in 2022. But so far, Trayvon Walker just has not proven to be a true pass rusher on the outside, and you always knew it was going to take a while for him to develop. But I think by the midway point in his second year here, which is where we're at pretty much, 7 games in, close to the midway point, I think you expected to see a little bit more from Trayvon Walker as a pass rusher, a little bit more development. You're just not seeing it consistently, not on the outside. I think you get him lined up against guards and centers, or you get him stunning inside against guards and centers, you get good results. But one-on-one edge rusher, mano-a-mano versus teams' right tackles, it's not been great so far in 2023 for Trayvon Walker. So I think you look at Danielle Hunter. Could he come in and be a legitimate pass rusher for you? No doubt about it. Now, how would the snap share work out? Does Danielle Hunter, is he going to be okay with just coming in clear pass rushing situations? Or are you going to be okay with accepting that Trayvon Walker probably shouldn't be lined up as a 3-4 outside linebacker or 4-3 defensive end in pass rushing situations, and he really should be lined up inside more often than not? I don't know if the Jaguars are going to be willing to admit that or accept that, if Trent Baalke would be willing to pivot from that plan. I have no idea, but I do think the Jaguars should be interested in Danielle Hunter because he, again, leads the league in sacks, unbelievable pass rusher. You combine him with Josh Allen, and now you're cooking with fire, and now you have Trayvon Walker rotating in. You have DeJuan Smoot rotating in. You have Kayvon Chason, Yasir Abdullah. You have a much better looking, and DeJuan Smoot, you have a much better looking pass rush group. Now, Danielle Hunter, he is going to have a lot of trade interest, but he's not the only guy out there that could potentially be had in a trade. The Vikings, they did just win last night on Monday Night Football, so they're 3-4. They might not be as big of sellers as some might have expected, with the slow start that they had, but they're now starting to kick it into gear a little bit. But if he's available, I think the Jaguars should absolutely be willing to part ways with a good amount of capital to land him, just because he can be so impactful and he can give you a Super Bowl edge rush, in my opinion. Him and Josh Allen, 2 guys at the very top of the league in sacks right now. I think that would give you an unbelievable pairing. I think Brian Burns would do the same thing for you as well. He's a similar player, in my opinion. Maybe not quite as dominant a pass rusher, but a guy who he's incredible. And I think that, again, combining him with Josh Allen would be a thing of beauty for this pass rush for the Jaguars, but another player that I think would be looking for a long-term deal. The Panthers, they're not doing a whole lot right now. We don't know if they're going to be big sellers or not, but you obviously look around the league at teams that kind of aren't in position to really compete for the playoffs. I think you look at the Panthers, and that's where they are right now. Brian Burns is a great talent. I know a lot of Florida State fans would be fired up to get him in Jacksonville, but Brian Burns absolutely makes sense for the Jaguars. Again, if they're willing to admit that at least right now, Trayvon Walker is not the edge rusher they expected him to be, and he's not going to magically turn into that overnight. You want a Super Bowl pass rush? Brian Burns will help you get there, no doubt about it. So will his teammate, in my opinion, Justin Houston, and that's a completely different situation because with Danielle Hunter and Brian Burns, you have two guys kind of in their primes. You're either doing a one-year rental, half-year rental, or you're trading for them and trying to sign them long-term. But Justin Houston, he is a guy who you really could just rent for half a year. He's an older veteran. He's a guy looking to get a Super Bowl ring. He plays for the Panthers along with Brian Burns. I think if Justin Houston was available via trade, and it would be a much less lucrative trade, a much less costly trade on the Jaguars' part for a veteran who already is a designated pass rusher, has served that role for several years now. I think Justin Houston makes a ton of sense for the Jaguars to come in because he doesn't actually have to impact their long-term outlook on Trayvon Walker. He doesn't have to. He doesn't represent Trent Baalke taking an L on Trayvon Walker being a legitimate outside pass rusher in this league because he just comes in clear pass rushing situations. He doesn't. He's not a guy that has to come in and play in base for you at all. So I don't think that would really negatively impact Trent Baalke's ego. I don't think it would negatively impact Trayvon Walker's playing time a whole lot. You get Justin Houston in here, and I think he does help you get the quarterback to the ground, get pressure on the quarterback in those clear, big pass rushing situations, the big moments in the game. So I think Justin Houston makes a ton of sense. I wanted the Jaguars to sign him this offseason. They didn't. Looking over at Washington, the Commanders, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, both of these guys up for new contracts soon. I think that they're both playing at a high level right now. Obviously, Montez Sweat has been more consistent throughout his career. Chase Young has dealt with injuries, but both of these guys are absolute freak shows athletically. Both of them would massively upgrade the Jaguars' pass rush. If either of them is available for the Washington Commanders, I think you look over there and you try to bring one of them in and pair them with Josh Allen for the long term. Again, this is kind of that ego check for Trent Baalke. Is he willing to admit that Trayvon Walker isn't a stud pass rusher on the outside? If he is willing to admit that, Montez Sweat or Chase Young could definitely help out the Jaguars. And then these next three guys that I have here are more of the guys that you bring in and they don't really impact Trayvon Walker's long-term outlook. They just come in and try to help out probably for the remainder of 2023. Maybe you bring them back for a year or two after, but guys that don't really impact your long-term outlook. Josh Uche, he's already a designated pass rusher for the New England Patriots. They're not having a ton of success so far in 2023, and he's not been playing a ton. He hasn't been even playing half of their pass rush snaps so far. So I think Josh Uche could potentially be available. He's definitely a guy that fits that role. Carl Lawson for the New York Jets is another player who has not been getting a ton of play so far in 2023, and a guy who has talent, who is still should be in his prime. He's dealt with injuries throughout his career, but a guy who could definitely give you more juice off the bench as a designated pass rusher. And then Derek Barnett, I list him because he played with Doug Peterson in Philly. He's a guy that, again, like these other guys that I just mentioned, not getting a ton of run so far in 2023, not getting a bunch of reps. So maybe Derek Barnett could be had for super cheap and come in and upgrade your floor a little bit as a pass rusher. And for me, I mean, maybe more attractive than a lot of these names is still Melvin Ingram, who's a free agent right now. This is a guy who has been a designated pass rusher for the last several years, similar to Justin Houston. He's done it at an extremely high level. He's sitting at home right now on his couch, not sure what he's doing. Hopefully he's in shape. You bring him in, and you could be getting a guy for no draft capital. you just bring him in on a cheap contract and have him try to help you win a Super Bowl as a pass rusher. I think Carlos Dunlap would help in that regard too. There's a couple other guys out there that could help as well. But for me, the Jaguars to stand pat with this pass rush would be a mistake. Now, could Trayvon Walker show more development throughout the remainder of the season and by the time the playoffs come around actually be, making a more consistent impact? That is possible. I'm not going to rule that out. But do you want to bank on that? I don't know. Do you want to bank on Dwan Smoot really turning the corner after that Achilles in the next couple months? Maybe. I wouldn't. Again, I would try to ensure that I have a Super Bowl caliber pass rush because you are in a Super Bowl window right now. You're not paying Trevor Lawrence a ton right now yet. There's a bunch of other guys on this roster that are going to need to be paid a lot. If you can go get someone right now that's going to help you win a Super Bowl right now in a league that looks wide open, in the AFC, you're dealing with the Chiefs are at the top. I think you could look at the Dolphins and Ravens close to the top, even though I think the Dolphins have some clear issues, offensive line and defensively. But the Jaguars are right there in the AFC, in the thick of it. They're right there at the top of that conference. And if they want to, get over the top, be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, as they failed to do last year, and they've failed to beat them 3 straight times now over the last couple years. If you want to beat a team like that, beat a team like the Ravens in the playoffs, I think you're going to need as many pass rushers as you can get. And I think they absolutely should be looking for one, whether that's one of these top of the market type of guys like a Danielle Hunter, like a Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, or a guy who can just come in and be a designated pass rusher, whether it's via trade or via free agency. I would definitely be pursuing a pass rusher. Hopefully the Jaguars are looking into it. Again, the trade deadline is a week from today. October 31st, Halloween Day, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and the guys that are available via free agency, they'll be available until they're signed. So the clock might be ticking. I could see guys being signed after the trade deadline passes. Teams no longer available to trade. Maybe they go scour the free agent market. So we'll see how it plays out. But if you're Trent Baalke, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, you should absolutely be pursuing a pass rusher right now. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can check out genjag.com/shop as well. Pick up some new Duval gear. Really appreciate y'all. Have a good one.